Now let's meet our third team of challengers. What is your name, please?
My name is Stanley Cramp.
My name is Stanley Cramp.
My name is Stanley Cramp.
Follow along with your copies of this one, if you will, please, panel. I, Stanley Cramp, am chairman of the Council of the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, senior editor of a publication called British Birds, and vice president of the London Natural History Society. Recently, I completed a study of the birds that nest in the gardens that surround the London residence of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Armed with a pair of binoculars and a notebook, I spent 3 years counting and classifying the songbirds and the water birds that live in the royal gardens. Because I have been granted royal permission to visit the Queen's gardens for bird study, I have come to be known as the Buckingham Palace Bird Watcher. Signed, Stanley Cramp.
Get in touch with Game Show Network. Log on to our website and play our games or email us your questions and comments. It's www.gameshownetwork.com.
Very well, these three gentlemen all claim to be Stanley Cramp. We'll start with Peggy Cass. Peggy?
Thank you, Mr. Cramp II. Could you tell me, do nightingales sing only at night?
Yes.
Number 3, do thrushes sing at the night in the night of the day?
Daytime.
Thank you. Now, number 1, they says you're the Buckingham Palace Bird Watcher. Do you have any swans?
Occasionally.
Thank you. What's a lady swan called, number 1?
Swan is a mute swan in England.
A mute swan?
Yeah.
What is it called? She meant a lady swan.
Oh, what is a lady swan? I thought you said what the call was. They, no special name, just a female swan.
Well, thank you. Number 2, how many birds have you clocked?
A variety is 21 to 22.
Thank you. And number 3, what's the most exotic bird found around Buckingham Palace? A miniskirt Maud.
Most colorful would be the woodpecker, I would say.
Oh, well, don't you have anything fancier than that?
Barry Nelson.
Number 2, why does a woodpecker peck wood?
He wants to eat the insects.
All right. Number 3, do most of the birds migrate in the winter?
No, very few.
Number 1, what is the most, name 3 of the most common birds found in the garden?
Common birds are the house sparrow, the wood pigeon, and the mallard duck.
Number 2, is the swan, does it have a rather mean disposition?
Sometimes, if you disturb its young.
Could you tell me the name of a famous bird album?
In this country?
Any country.
In this country, it would be Audubon's book.
Oh, thank you.
Kitty Carlisle.
Number 2 said swans weren't very mean birds, but I'm told that a swan could break your arm if he got real angry. Isn't that true?
They can be very savage indeed.
Number 2, what do you call a baby swan?
Cygnus.
Number 1, is there a swimming pool in Buckingham Palace outdoors?
No, there's a lake, but not a swimming pool.
Number 2, from which vantage point in the palace do you watch?
Well, it's done early in the morning. It's the best time to watch birds, but we're not allowed in the palace, so I never went inside the palace.
So where do you watch from? In the bushes?
Well, it's a big garden. You walk around.
Number 3, how long do you watch in the morning?
Anywhere from 2 to 3 hours in the early morning.
And what do you say is the most exotic bird you've ever seen?
Tom Poston.
That certainly is.
Number 3, do you know where Audubon was from?
I think he was from the British Virgin Islands.
Is that so? Number 2, do you know where he lived when he did his work, most of his work?
As far as I know, in this country.
Do you know where?
In New York City, I believe.
Thank you. Number 1, now, has anybody made any attempt to attract other varieties of birds to the palace grounds?
No.
Just counting and tabulating and so forth?
The birds arrive there naturally, yes.
Uh-huh. And number 3, are they fed at all? On purpose, I mean.
No, only the few tame birds that are there are fed. The others are wild.
And that's all the time we have. I'm sorry to say it is time for you now to climb into your nests and mark your ballots. So mark them at once, without change, without any consultation. Vote, please, now, for number 1, number 2, or number 3. Are all ballots marked?
No, I'm not yet. Well, I find it difficult. Rather difficult, in fact.
Say when, Tom.
Well, I found it too hard to decide. I was going to vote for 3, and finally voted for number 2. I was put off a little bit, but when number 1 said that he didn't know the name for the female swan, I don't know whether there's one or not, but I figured he might know one technically. I shouldn't have voted for number 2 because Audubon drew in New Orleans, as you know.
That's right.
Peggy.
I voted for number 3 because I think Audubon is either from St. Kitts or Nevis. I think he is from the British Virgin Islands. And also, when he said his name was Mr. Cramp, a very nasty little titter went around the room because, and he's the only one that looked kind of sore, so I think his name is Mr. Cramp.
Barry.
I was going to vote for number 3 also, Bud, but when Tom did his excellent bird imitation, I saw number 1 classify him.
What was that classification?
Kitty Carlisle.
I voted for number 1 because I believe there is a swimming pool in Buckingham Palace outdoors. I saw a diagram of it once, but he said there wasn't one. But number 2 didn't say that Audubon did his work in New Orleans, and I come from New Orleans, and I know that's true. So it might well be number 3, but I voted for number 1.
Well, very well. Now we have all the votes in, widely spread out, as you can see. So let's find out now which of these 3 gentlemen, in truth, is Stanley Cramp. Will the real Stanley Cramp please stand up? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Aren't lady swans called hens? And what are the males called? Cobs, aren't they?
Cobs for the male, yeah.
And Swanee.
I got to know.
No special name for
I don't know one.
Number 2, what is your real name and what do you really do?
My name's Paul Rader Kanaki, and I'm a stockbroker with Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith.
Thank you. And number 3, what is your real name and what do you do?
My name is Bill Plummer, and I'm with the Royal Worcester Porcelain Company.
Thank you. Taking the score, we find you do a 50-50 job of fooling, and that's good with this panel, believe me. That means there were 2 incorrect votes at $250 each for a grand total of $500. And thank you for joining us, gentlemen. Good night, and God bless you. We'll be back in a minute, but now this important message.
Hey.
Stay tuned for I've Got a Secret. Join us next week at the same time. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon on a daytime show, YouTube panel, and of course see you next week, too. In the meantime, don't you forget to tell the truth.
To Tell the Truth is a Mark Goodson, Bill Cosby. Eve Arden henpecks George Appleby in tomorrow's Red Skelton comedy. This Sunday, the 21st Century premieres with an eye-opening report on the communications explosion.
Miss Carlisle's dress from Rose Perfect Negligee. This is Johnny Olson speaking for To Tell the Truth. Tonight's program was pre-recorded. The photograph of English Rose III was used through the courtesy of the Saturday Evening Post.
If you are one of the millions of